Stop listening now if you don't want to meet Betsy.
Last episode, we introduced you all to our career director, Zach. This week, we're talking to his partner in crime, the dynamite in the dynamic duo. If she's not negotiating your full-time salary, she's recruiting employers, organizing the career fair, or setting you up for success. Welcome to the peer review, and you guys, welcome Betsy.
Thank you both for having me here.
All right, so Betsy, we're going to go ahead and start off by asking you a few questions about yourself. Some of them we asked Zach as well. We kind of just want to get a few perspectives on some of these things. We're going to go ahead and start with a fun question because I feel like we all start out with a really silly first job. So I wanted to know what your first job was, and I'm also curious, I know now they have like labor laws and you have to be 14 to be working. Was that a thing when you had your first job? Like how old were you as well?
Maybe we'll skip over that part, but I'm definitely of the generation where parents trusted me with their children entirely too young. I was babysitting really, really young, and now as a mom, I'm like, what were they thinking? I mean, I kept every kid alive, and nobody went to the hospital ever, and I loved it. I loved kids, and it was a lot of fun, but first job was babysitting, and a lot of that was negotiating with tiny humans, so I guess I'm still putting that to work, but I don't know what the parents were thinking trusting me with their children that young.
I think that was my first job too, actually. And I remember, like, I never had younger siblings, and then I was just handed a 10-month-old baby, and I was like...
Funny enough, I never babysat. I feel like so many people have that experience as their first job, but I have never. Nobody's ever trusted me with their children.
I wouldn't either, so makes sense.
The youngest kiddo I babysat when I was in high school was 3 weeks old.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Looking back, I'm like, I'm terrified that someone let me do that. It was great. I loved it. And easiest baby ever, but yeah.
Yeah, because it can't even really move yet.
No, that's what we call the potted plant stage. When you set them someplace and leave, you come back, they're still there. Potted plant stage.
So perfect for high school.
Yeah, what?
Perfect age.
And, like, I remember finding out that babies you're not supposed to just give them a bunch of water.
No.
And that could kill them.
Yes.
I remember finding that out in college and being stunned. I'm like, and you shouldn't like sleep in the same bed as your baby and all these different things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like nobody tells you any of these things. So
No. But luckily, I did not have to worry about water for the baby. The parents gave good instructions. So baby's still alive. A mom herself now. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes,
well,
I'm old.
You should be pretty proud of keeping that baby alive.
Yes.
That transitions me to our next question for you. What is your proudest career achievement overall?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I will say, and I think a lot of students will relate to this, that, you know, I have a legal background. I took the bar exam, and that is a very stressful thing for anyone who is engineering. You all will get it. Everything's stressful with everything you do. Passed on the first try. That was probably the hardest I've ever dedicated myself to studying for something. Like, I literally said goodbye to my family and my friends for 2 months. It was like, I'll come up for meals occasionally and see you, but that's it. And I did it on the first try. That was probably proudest from a standpoint of no one else was doing it for me. No one else was telling me you should be studying, you should do this. It was everything I'd been working for up until that point, and I passed on the first try.
that's so impressive.
Incredible.
So probably the other proudest achievement is I've been willing to take big risks at key points in my career that have always paid off, but could have really, really gone badly. One was moving without a job and only having had an interview, and that worked out, to an entirely different city, packing up what I could fit in my car and moving to D.C. The other was while I was at D.C., or living in D.C., working, there was something that was happening that I knew was absolutely the wrong thing for the organization I was in. I sent an email to someone on the board of directors. Don't recommend this as a career tip, by the way. Don't recommend this, but I knew with everything in my heart that this was the choices that people were making were going to really move us in the wrong direction. The head of the board of directors responded with a simple thank you so much, and things went rapidly in the right direction after that. And I knew it was because I took a risk that could have gotten me fired. 100% could have gotten me fired. But he never let anyone know that I was the person that stepped up and let him know what was going on. And it wasn't a law being broken, just so we're clear. There were no laws being broken, but it was big risks, key risks, where I just trusted my gut that if I didn't say something, I would always regret it. And I think it was a really positive thing for the organization overall.
Wow.
That almost left me speechless.
No,
That
I
was
mean,
incredible.
I remember in our ethics class, they tell us about whistleblowing, and I just sit there and I listen, and I'm like, wow, that sounds really intense. Like, I hope that never happens, where I feel like I need to say something because then they're like, the way they approach it, they're like, go first to your immediate boss and then the one after, then the one after. And I'm like, you just went straight for the board of directors. So really you jumped like everyone's boss ever.
I had to because of what was going on. We had an interim director, and that was part of the problem. We were trying to replace leadership, and we'd had great leadership, but the direction they were going, I was the only consistency we'd had for multiple years. Could have gotten myself fired, for sure. I did that on a Friday. I basically was sick to my stomach and chomping on Tums all weekend long, worrying about whether I'd have a job on Monday. But on Monday, no emails were waiting for me. HR was not waiting at my office door. And as time went on, I got the thank you email from, the head of the board and just said, thank you. And then I saw things started happening rapidly and all for the better. Things really ended up being fine. And I don't know, actually, that anyone there knows that that was me. So they might now if they ever watch this.
Yeah, hopefully this doesn't get it out. I don't know. I'm sure we'll get millions of viewers on this podcast.
No, it wasn't a whistleblowing thing, and that's really important. And it probably sounds much more like, spy sort of thing. Not at all. It was just big changes were happening in how they were going to reorganize things, and people were not being included in decisions.
I mean, you were advocating for what you
No,
believed was
super
right.
impressive.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's probably one of the proudest things. So big risks sometimes really can pay off. But if it had failed, I still probably would have felt proud of myself for doing it. I just would have been looking for a job.
Wow. Well, I'm not
Glad it
surprised, you
worked
guys.
out.
Betsy's character has always been amazing from what I can see. But okay, so this isn't quite fully related to our next question, but I know that you've been working in the Career Center for a while now, and it seems like you've been in a lot of different roles. I know you said you started out passing the bar exam, and you've found your way here. So both you and Zach have taken circuitous routes. We learned that word with Zach.
Wow.
I know, and now I can pronounce it correctly because I struggled to say it in the last episode. I couldn't pronounce it, so now I can. I practiced in my room for like an hour. And I was like, I'm sneaking this word into the podcast today.
Circuitous.
So what do you think is the best part of your job now, though?
I mean, first, I have to build on the fact that both Zach and I have had different routes here, and that's something for students to know. Very rarely do you stay doing the thing you started out right out of college. It doesn't mean you don't stay doing something very related to it or focused on it. It doesn't mean you failed either, because if you've met with either one of us, you'll hear us talk about transferable skills. I absolutely use my legal training. I absolutely use my background in that. I use the advocacy skills I used when I was up on the Hill in D.C. doing things, when I would be up there trying to convince legislators of the right thing to do. I use that all the time, and so all of the skills you guys will get, you will use. So it's important to say, like, I found my way here in a very different way than many people might, but what I love about it, I never have the same day twice. I mean, that's a good thing. It's never the same day twice, but I absolutely love when I'm working with students, getting to see your success as students, because y'all in engineering and computer science are super hard on yourselves. You get into UK under the same qualifications, so you're all really smart. And I know that, but you all forget that. You get a little beaten down in classes and forget that what you're doing is hard, because if it wasn't hard, everybody would do it. And so I love when I get to help students work on preparing for interviews and talk about themselves. And sometimes I'm amazed. I'm like, well, tell me about things you've done. And they'll just roll off these things, and they're like, yeah, but that's nothing. Like everybody. So I'm like, no. Nobody's done that. Like, that's amazing. Like, and so it's a lot of humility and getting to help build up the way you all talk about each other, talk about yourselves, and then the way you go after opportunities. I love getting to see that, and there is nothing better than getting an email or a student coming in and say, I got it. Whatever the it is, they got it. Whether it's an internship, co-op, full-time job offer, interview, you name it. Whatever we've been working towards, it is so immensely rewarding to see, because everyone's like, oh, thank you so much. I'm like, we give you the tools, you guys have to do the work, and it's really rewarding to see that when that happens. So that's probably my favorite part.
What a wonderful answer. That sounds
I
like
know.
you've almost been media trained. But I want to say for anybody
no.
watching that this is the authentic Betsy, and what you saw
Organic
last
conversation.
week was the authentic Zach. And if you have ever been in the Career Center at a moment where somebody has gotten a job, gotten to ring the bell, you can feel the energy and how excited everybody is for you, and it's a really awesome thing to see.
Well, thank you. Yes, zero training here, and I don't know all the questions even, so it's going to be fun.
That's awesome. And like at the same time, I feel like too, a student has to, it is easy for engineering students to kind of dismiss their successes, and you mentioned that. and they can be like, it was all you guys, and you guys are amazing, incredible resources to have that we all need to be taking advantage of. But a student too, working as a group, I've noticed a student has to be receptive as well. So
absolutely. All right. So this is kind of similar to what you just answered, but what specifically about working with students do you enjoy?
Oh gosh, that's hard because everyone's story is so different. I think probably the nicest thing is like we're not giving people grades. You know, yes, Zach and I teach one class, but we are not the professors you have to go to over and over again. So when a student walks in for the first time or the 10th time, we both always start with the same question, which is, how are you doing? How are things going? How's the semester been? And sometimes it's like, oh, it's been great. Or, oh, man, classes are terrible. And every once in a while there's somebody who starts crying. And, you know, for very understandable reasons, I think part of that is that we are a safe space. And that sounds kind of cheesy, but it's true because you can be honest with us. I'm not going to go report back to your professors. I'm not going to go say, oh, they said you're terrible, which professors, if you're watching, they're not saying that. But life happens. Whether you're a student or not, life is still lifing, you know, and that's not a true verb, so forgive me. But just because you're in classes and you're taking a really hard major or you've got a co-op, things are happening with your family, things are happening with your friends, things are happening with your own health. And so sometimes just getting to be that space where it's like, oh, this is the only person here who has asked me this and genuinely cared today, and I needed that. And sometimes it's just, you know, it's the normal, like, oh, it's going all right, and we talk about what's going well, what's not, and we go from there. But I think getting to start those relationships, that's probably what makes it so great. And some students I don't get to see all the time. You know, sometimes I'll help them as a freshman, and then I may not see them for a few years, in much more than passing, but I love seeing them at the career fairs. I love them just like saying, it went well, you know, any of that. It's great. So did that answer it? I think I sort of forgot the question and meandered.
No, I think that definitely answers the question. I was just asking, like, what specific things about working with students do you enjoy?
I think it's that. I think it is the relationships. You know, when we have our career pairs come in, you know, we say, you can absolutely go get someone to write a resume for you. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to write the resume for you. I will teach students how to talk about themselves and wordsmith in the beginning on the resumes, but I want to help students get better at doing this in general because it's a lifelong skill, and that's what I really like. When they start to come back and we've worked together for a while, I'm like, oh, yeah, they're getting it. They're starting to see it, they're getting it, and it doesn't have to be they've become a professional resume writer. It just can be that they're starting to learn how to talk about the value they bring and believing it. Like that's a big deal. So that's probably it.
Awesome.
I love that. And like thinking about resumes as well. I mean, I'm thinking about when we've worked in the Career Center, we have had students come in with nothing for a resume, and all they need to do is get ideas onto paper and we can help shape it. But
yeah, so much of feeling like you're prepared to find a job or to go to an interview is just, like you said, having the confidence to be able to talk about your value and what you bring to the table. And that is what I think engineering students are missing the most coming in. So
well, and I think a lot of you all come in, you were top in your class in high school. Many of you were the tutors, and now it's like, oh, I have to go to tutoring. I need some help. I'm going to go to the Tau Beta Pi tutoring to get some help with chemical engineering. I mean, you name it. And there's a little bit of like you're failing because you need help. No, it's not failing. And I tell a lot of students, if any of this career services stuff was easy, I wouldn't have a job. Zach wouldn't have a job. We wouldn't need career peers because it'd be like, oh, no, you can just do it. So even with AI growing, we still know, like, not anti-AI, just saying, like, AI is not a bad thing, but we still want to teach you how to talk about yourselves well and teach you how to do that. So, yeah.
Thank you. All right. So, Betsy, we're on to our last question.
Okay.
We did ask Zach this as well, and I just think it's a fun thing to ask people, especially if it's been a while, but also curious, maybe remind them of where you did go to college and what you did just for fun, and then let us know if you could go back and give college you one piece of advice, what it would be.
Okay. So I went to a small liberal arts university in Ohio, Wittenberg University. It's in Springfield, Ohio, which if you're not from Ohio, it's sort of diagonally between Dayton and Columbus. I absolutely love the education I got. It taught me to think critically. I would fight for that kind of education all day long, and just being able to think critically, ask questions. I had professors who pushed me that I really appreciate. Things that were fun. I joined a sorority, which absolutely was great, and it forced me to, make sure I was focusing on school, and I was work study. I was worked in the dean's office for 4 years, but then I also got a congressional internship. So I was lucky in that a lot of the things that were opened up to me and leadership opportunities on campus, I ended up being the sports editor for the school newspaper, because one of my sorority sisters was like, hey, you want to write an article for the paper? I was like, okay. And I was on an editorial board for the English department. There were a lot of different things I got to do. And I know some of you went, that doesn't sound fun at all. Some of it was, late nights working on the newspaper to get it published. There was some fun there. But Wittenberg is in Springfield, Ohio. There's not a lot there. It's wonderful, it's beautiful, but there's not a lot there. So you had to find your friends and you had to get involved. But I sort of balanced a lot of activities, probably too many activities sometimes. With classes, I was double majoring, and sometimes I was like 18 credit hours for multiple semesters in a row. Graduated on time. If I could look back at myself, I think I would say if you can figure out a way to go abroad, do it.
Wow.
That's crazy.
It's crazy that
We'll
that's
tell you
your answer.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We'll tell you why. Finish. You can
Well,
finish.
mostly because I was a scholarship kid, single mom, and trying to figure that out at the time just seemed like an impossible lift. There was no way. I needed to go home and work over the summer or work in the semester to graduate in 4 years, so that tuition, my scholarships were for sure only 4 years, and I knew that those would be done if I stayed longer. I just wish I could go back. And, is it the end of the world that I didn't know, but I would go back and say, figure this out, find a way to do this so you can go someplace.
The reason that this is so crazy is because that was Zach's same answer
No.
for the piece of advice
That's
you would give your
hilarious.
college self. And the crazy part is I also, before I even finished graduating, which I graduated this May as a reminder, felt the same way. So
Yeah, and that was my answer as well. I won't.
it's
be
just
studying
so hard in
abroad last
engineering
year.
to figure
is.
it out. And I
can
remember
be.
spending an entire summer, freshman year, because I knew this was something I wanted to do. Freshman year, I remember spending an entire summer trying to figure it out. And for my chemical engineering classes, it wasn't an option unless I wanted to take a year off. But if you do a semester or co-op and then you go abroad for a semester, that is an option. So I do wish I had done that.
I think the only other thing, aside from that, would be willing to ask for help. I was very bad at doing that in college. If I was overwhelmed or I'd gotten myself involved in too many, overcommitted, I was not good at asking for help, so I burned out. I'd be busy, and then be like, I don't want to talk to anyone for 2 weeks. And, so probably
That's something that's
ask
so
for
much
help.
easier said than done. Though.
Oh,
Yeah.
1,000%. And it takes time. I'm still working on that as an adult at this point, but it gets easier to say, you know what? No, I don't think I can do that.
Right.
So,
And there's a balance between knowing when to ask for help and maybe relying on other people too strongly. I feel like for me, that is one thing that I worked on a lot at my co-ops, is being you know what, there's no point if I'm going to sit here for 3 hours trying to figure this out, to waste all this time and the company's time when somebody else could tell me in 2 minutes where to find this web page that I didn't know existed
Right.
to do this random calculation. Sure. But it's hard to know even when you should be asking questions if you're that new to a role or position, or even if you've been working a job for years. There's always new stuff happening. So I think that's a good piece of advice too, and it's something I feel like you always have to kind of figure out and play by ear, even as you practice it more.
yeah.
I think there's definitely more regret to be felt in not asking questions than there is
Yes.
in asking a stupid question, stupid question with air
Yeah.
quotes,
Yeah.
because there's no stupid
not real.
questions.
There's
But-
some stupid questions.
Maybe.
You ever heard the phrase, there's no stupid questions, just stupid people? And I'm not saying that's true, but people say there's no stupid questions, just stupid people. No, the stupid people can be stupid for a lifetime or temporarily, depending on if they ask the questions.
I think too that what really makes a stupid question is if it's already been answered and you just weren't listening. So that's the main thing. Don't ever, if you're going to be asking a lot of questions, especially in a job, just make sure you're not asking the same question over and over.
Take notes first. Take your
Yeah.
notes and then ask your question.
That's
Yes.
something I also think is important. But
Yes.
okay.
That leads us to our next segment. Thank you for that incredible introduction,
Absolutely.
Betsy.